The night my husband kicked me out of our house, it was raining so hard that I could barely see the road. I stood on the front porch with one suitcase in my hand, my wedding ring still on my finger, and tears mixing with the rain running down my face. Behind me stood the man I had loved for 7 years, my husband, Ethan. He looked at me without a trace of regret. "You have 10 minutes," he said coldly. "Take whatever belongs to you and leave." I stared at him. "Ethan, it's 11 at night." "I know. Where am I supposed to go?" He shrugged. "That's not my problem anymore." Those words hurt more than the rain. I had spent 7 years believing that Ethan was my home. I had supported him when he had nothing. I had stayed awake beside him when he worked late. I had sold my jewelry to help him launch his business. I had turned down a promotion because he told me he needed me at home. And now, after everything I had sacrificed, he was standing in our doorway telling me that I was no longer his problem. I looked at the suitcase in my hand. Then I looked at him. "Is there someone else?" For the first time that night, Ethan hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. I swallowed hard. "Who is she?" Ethan sighed. "Her name is Claire." I felt something inside me break. "Claire from your office?" "Yes." "How long?" He looked away. "Almost a year." Almost a year. While I was making his dinners. While I was defending him to my friends. While I was helping him prepare presentations. While I was believing every late-night excuse. Almost a year. I slowly removed my wedding ring. I placed it on the small table beside the door. Ethan looked at it. "You don't have to be dramatic." I almost laughed. "Dramatic?" I pointed at the suitcase. "You just threw your wife out of her own home in the middle of a storm because you cheated on her." He said nothing. I stepped closer. "Tell me one thing, Ethan. Did you ever love me?" His face remained expressionless. "I loved who you used to be." I froze. "What does that mean?" "You used to be ambitious." He looked me up and down. "Now you're just comfortable." I stared at him in disbelief. He had no idea how ironic those words were, because 6 months later, he would wish he had never said them. But at that moment, I didn't know that yet. I only knew that my marriage was over. I picked up my suitcase, then I walked into the rain. And I never looked back. My name is Sienna Hart. I was 32 years old that night. And before Ethan became my husband, I had been a completely different woman. I had graduated near the top of my class with a degree in business administration. At 26, I was working for a growing technology company called Westbridge Solutions. I was ambitious. I was independent. I was good at what I did. Then I met Ethan. He was charming, funny, confident, and incredibly good at making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. When he told me he wanted to build his own company one day, I believed in him. When he said he wanted me beside him, I believed him. And when he asked me to give up my position at Westbridge so I could help him build his business, I did. That was my first mistake. I thought sacrifice was another word for love. It wasn't. Sometimes sacrifice is simply what happens when you love someone who doesn't know how to value you. For the first 2 years, Ethan's company struggled. I helped him with everything. I created spreadsheets. I negotiated with suppliers. I rewrote proposals. I handled customers. I even used my savings to cover payroll during one difficult month. Ethan promised me that one day we would look back and laugh. "We're building our future," he would say. I believed him. But as his company grew, he changed. The man who once asked for my opinion began ignoring it. The man who once called me his partner started introducing me as my wife. There was a difference, a painful one. Then came Claire. Claire was 29, beautiful, confident, and worked as Ethan's executive assistant. At first, I didn't think anything of her. Then I started noticing little things. The private jokes, the late-night messages, the way Ethan suddenly cared more about his appearance before going to the office. Whenever I asked, he accused me of being insecure. "You're imagining things, Sienna." I believed him, Because I trusted my husband. That was mistake number 2. The morning after he threw me out, I woke up in my older sister Olivia's guest room. My clothes were still damp. My suitcase was sitting beside the bed. Olivia opened the door carrying coffee. She looked at me and immediately knew. "You're not going back, are you?" I shook my head. "No." She sat beside me. "What happened?" I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she hugged me. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You didn't lose your husband last night, Sienna." I looked at her. "You lost the illusion that he was your husband." Those words stayed with me. For 3 days, I cried. I barely ate. I barely slept. I kept checking my phone, hoping Ethan would call. He didn't. Instead, I received a message from him. "Please don't make this ugly. I'll have my attorney contact you about the divorce." I stared at the screen. No apology. No. "Are you okay?" No. "I'm sorry." Just a warning. Don't make this ugly. I put the phone down. And for the first time, I realized something. Ethan wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of what I might discover. That thought changed everything. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Rachel Morgan. She was calm, direct, and terrifyingly intelligent. During our first meeting, I explained everything. When I mentioned Ethan's company, Rachel asked me a question. "How involved were you in the business?" "How very?" "How very?" "I helped build it." She leaned forward. "Did you sign anything?" Some. "Some." "Find every document you have." "Why?" She looked at me. "Because if you helped build that company, I want to know exactly what you gave up." Over the next week, I searched through old emails, files, bank statements, contracts, and forgotten folders. And then I found something. A document from 7 years earlier, a partnership agreement. I had completely forgotten about it. I had signed it before Ethan and I were married. According to the agreement, I owned 20% of the original company shares because I had invested my savings and contributed professional services during the company's founding period. 20%. I read the number again. Then again. I called Rachel. "Rachel?" "Yes." "I found something." "What?" "I own 20% of Ethan's company." There was silence. Then Rachel said, "Don't tell Ethan yet." My heart began beating faster. "Why?" "Because if he thinks you're powerless, he may make a mistake." And he did. A very big one. 2 weeks later, Ethan filed for divorce. He claimed I had abandoned the marriage. He claimed I had been emotionally unstable. He claimed I had contributed very little to the business. I sat in Rachel's office reading the documents. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. "He's lying." Rachel nodded. "I know." She opened a folder. "We have your emails." Another folder. "Your financial records." Another. "Your original partnership agreement." Then she looked at me. "And we have something even more interesting." "What?" "Ethan transferred company funds into a private account." My stomach tightened. "How much?" "Over $180,000. "Where?" Rachel slid a document across the desk. The account belonged to Claire. I stared at the paper. Claire wasn't just his girlfriend. She was receiving company money. My husband had been cheating on me and stealing from the business at the same time. Suddenly, everything made sense. The expensive dinners, the weekend trips, the new apartment Claire had been bragging about online. Ethan hadn't been paying for all of it. The company had, and technically, 20% of that company belonged to me. Rachel smiled slightly. "Now we stop reacting. What do? We investigate." For the next month, I became obsessed with rebuilding my life. Not revenge. Not yet. First, I needed myself back. I updated my resume. I started networking. I took online courses. I began attending business events. And then I applied for a position at a major investment and consulting firm called North Star Capital Group. I didn't expect anything, but 3 days later, they called me. We'd like to interview you. The interview lasted 2 hours. The managing director, Victoria Bennett, looked through my resume. Then she asked, "Why did you leave Westbridge Solutions?" I hesitated. "My husband asked me to leave." Victoria looked at me. "Why?" "Because he said he needed me." "And did he?" I thought about that question. "No." She smiled. "Good answer." At the end of the interview, she said, "You have an unusual combination of financial knowledge, operational experience, and leadership ability." She paused. "Why have you been hiding it?" I smiled sadly. "I think I was busy helping someone else become successful." Victoria looked directly at me. "And now?" I took a breath. "Now I want to see what I can become." 3 days later, North Star hired me. Not as an assistant, not as a junior analyst, as a senior strategic consultant. My salary was almost double what I had earned before leaving Westbridge. For the first time in years, I bought clothes because I liked them. I went to restaurants alone. I traveled. I woke up early. I started running. I read books again. And slowly, I became Sienna again. Not Ethan's wife. Not someone's assistant. Not someone's sacrifice. Just Sienna. 3 months passed. Then 6. During that time, North Star Capital Group began looking for a company to acquire. One afternoon, Victoria called me into her office. "We've narrowed it down to 3 companies." She handed me the files. I opened the first, then the second, then the third. My hand stopped. The third company was Westbridge Solutions, Ethan's company. I looked up. "You're considering acquiring Westbridge?" "Yes." I swallowed. "Why?" Victoria smiled. "Because, despite its problems, the company has serious potential." She handed me another file. "We're interested in acquiring a controlling stake." My heart began pounding. "Who would lead the integration?" "You." I stared at her. "Me? You know the company better than anyone on our team." I couldn't speak. Victoria leaned back. "Is there a problem?" I thought about the night in the rain. The suitcase. The wedding ring. Ethan's words. "You're not my problem anymore." I looked at the file again. "No." I closed the folder. There is no problem. The following week, North Star began its due diligence. We discovered problems everywhere. Inflated numbers. Hidden debts. Authorized transfers. Questionable contracts. And then we found the money sent to Claire. North Star's legal team immediately flagged it. The board decided to proceed, but there was one condition. They wanted a new leadership team. Victoria looked at me. "I want you to take over operations after the acquisition." I almost laughed. "Take over Westbridge?" "Yes." "You know who owns it?" "I do." "And you know who the CEO is?" "I do." Victoria's expression didn't change. "That's exactly why I want you." The acquisition was finalized 6 months after Ethan kicked me out. 6 months. Exactly 6 months. The morning of the announcement, I wore a black tailored suit. I looked at myself in the mirror. I remembered the woman standing in the rain. She looked exhausted, broken, lost. I looked at myself now. She was gone. I whispered, "You survived." Then I walked out. At 9 a.m., I entered the Westbridge headquarters. Employees were gathered in the conference room. Some looked nervous, others confused. Ethan stood at the front of the room beside Claire. He was wearing an expensive suit. He looked confident, until I walked through the door. He stared at me. "Do you know her?" Westbridge Solutions through its next phase. She looked at me. Sienna Hart. Silence. Complete silence. Ethan's face turned pale. "No." I looked at him. "Good morning, Ethan." "What are you doing here?" Victoria answered before I could. "She is your new executive director." Ethan laughed nervously. "This has to be a joke." "It isn't," I said. He looked at Victoria. "You can't do this." Victoria calmly replied, "Actually, we already did." Then she turned to me. "The floor is yours." These were people I had once worked beside. People who had watched me build Westbridge from the beginning. I smiled. I was wrong. I looked directly at Ethan. I had simply lost the wrong thing. From today forward, Westbridge will operate differently. I introduced new financial controls, new reporting systems, new employee policies. Speak Up Before will now have a confidential read-where reporting system directly to North Star. No more secrets. No more intimidation. Ethan stood frozen. No. His jaw tightened. He flinched at the formal address. "You took my company." I smiled. "No. You gave it away." He closed the door. "You're enjoying this." "No." "You think you're better than me now?" "No." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because I earned the right to be here." He shook his head. "You're doing this because you're angry." I looked at him. He stared at me. Then he lowered his voice. "I made a mistake." "You didn't make one mistake, Ethan." He looked confused. "You made hundreds of choices. You chose to steal, to stand in the office of the woman you thought was powerless." "I loved you." I shook my head. "No." He stared at me. And when he saw me 6 months later, he didn't see the woman he had thrown out. He saw the woman I had become. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need him to regret losing me, because I no longer regretted leaving him. My name is Sienna Hart, and the night my husband kicked me out in the rain wasn't the night my life fell apart. It was the night I finally found myself.